Well, I can't say enough about most everybody, if not everybody, in the section.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling. It's a warm feeling, know that you've got these people there to back you up.
Yeah. Tommy, it's been a pleasure. I hope that your retirement is wonderful, and stay healthy.
I certainly will. Thank you very much, Mike.
All right.
Please join Mike Opaleski as he has a conversation with fellow George Warren Fuller awardee Guido von Autenreid. Guido was educated and has an engineering degree from the Technical University of Darmstadt in Germany. He is a professional engineer in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and the Commonwealth of Virginia. He is a professional planner in New Jersey and is a diplomat of the American Academy of Environmental Engineers. He is the principal and chief engineer at Buck, Seifert & Yost. Guido has more than 56 years of experience in civil, structural, and sanitary engineering on projects in the United States, Germany, Puerto Rico, and Latin America. His responsibilities covered all phases of engineering, from preliminary design, including water and wastewater treatment process studies, to final design, office phase and construction, inspection, and design and installation of SCADA systems. And within New Jersey, he has worked with several New Jersey water and wastewater systems. In 2011, Guido was awarded the New Jersey section's highest honor, the George Warren Fuller Award. Listen in on what Guido has seen and experienced in the water industry during his career.
Hello, I'm Mike Opaleski, and we're here on the Living History Project for the New Jersey American Waterworks section. With me today, and I'd like to introduce himself, is Guido.
My name is Guido von Autenreid, and I'm very happy to be here for this interview and discuss a few things regarding my education and work in the water industry.
All right, let's start. How long have you been in the industry?
Well, I think my total work time, taking all the stages into account, is approximately close to 60 years.
Wow.
And while it was initially not focused as much on water, it relatively fast focused on water.
My understanding is you're with Buck, Seifert & Yost at the present time. And
That's correct, right. I grew up during the years of World War II, and at that time, because of the situation in Germany where I grew up, my early years got me into military service at a very early age.
And you did it. You were involved in engineering, weren't you, at the beginning? You started with the engineering.
Yeah, but before that, I was already in the military, and then near the end of the war, I became a prisoner of war, American prisoner of war. And found out that in the very last few weeks of the war, my parents were killed. And so continued education became a real problem. I had not even finished high school yet as of that moment. And only through a special course was it possible to finish high school and then start thinking of further education. And it was because of relatives that were kind enough to kind of support me and help me to indeed go on and start thinking of going to college and get an education. And somehow my own background, and probably somewhat affected by the fact that my father was a civil engineer, I kind of started to think in the direction of engineering. And it was very difficult at that time to get admitted at any college, because so many people that had been pulled into the military were now suddenly all trying to get an education. It was just about a ratio of maybe 10 people applying for college and only one being able to get in. But it finally was successful that I could start my education at a technical university in Darmstadt, Germany. And the university at that time was still showing all the signs of the war. The lecture halls were usually halls and buildings with boarded up windows and so on. It was quite an experience.
Okay.
But
how did you choose engineering? Just because of your dad?
I think for the most part it was my dad's background that kind of made me lean in that direction. The next thing I think that affected it strongly was that during this period of still not having finished school and not yet studying, I had to start earning some money. And even getting jobs at that time was difficult. And some of the jobs, of course, started to immediately relate to reconstruction, to rebuilding. So that kind of favored the idea of starting to get into the construction industry. So I started to work as a mason and even in other areas of the construction industry.
Okay.
And that was a very interesting period because many people, because of the conditions after the war, had lost their job. You know, any person that was in any higher position and had been a member of the party was not allowed to work in his profession and had to find other work.
Okay.
So I remember working on construction projects, large construction projects, where all the people that worked there, with the exception of leading people, all the people that worked on there were people like lawyers, accountants, pharmacists, and they were working as construction workers to
to
earn
rebuild
money. Yeah, to rebuild.
and earn.
Giant projects where firms all joined their forces. Visualize a building 4 stories high. The railroad cars would bring in the debris from bombed out cities, and through sorters and crushers it would go down. At the very bottom in the basement you would make concrete blocks. And
Now, were you involved in the water at that time, Guido, or no?
really not. At that time it really was strictly engineering and construction.
Okay.
And then only gradually, even my first job after getting my degree, my first job was with the Corps of Engineers, believe it or not, American Corps of Engineers in Germany, in Frankfurt. I worked on facilities for the American Army that were being built as the after-war effect. And then only my first bigger job was with a consulting firm which was specializing in wastewater and water tasks. And from that on, I took a strong liking to it.
Now, you came to the United States in what year? In
1953.
And you were working. Who'd you work for at that time?
My biggest problem at that time was also first to find a job.
Okay.
Because it was still the after the war time, many of the firms were not able to hire somebody that did not yet have citizenship, because many of the firms had worked on war projects and had in their files information that was not supposed to be accessible to non-citizen. So I remember going for interviews, and my English was still a little weak at that time, and going from firm to firm. I interviewed with several engineering firms. Many were highway firms, others were general construction firms, and so on. And luckily then I came across at one point with an interview with Buck, Seifert and Jost. And the person that interviewed me kind of seemed to recognize that I would maybe be a good fit for what they were needing, and he hired me. And because of the situation and my background at this time, I had, of course, no recognized license. In Europe, once you finish your college and you have a degree, you're authorized and recognized as an official engineer. And you can actually do work and sign it, and that is it. Here, this is not the case. You do need your license.
Right.
Or interestingly, I figured that should be no problem because I had a master's degree in civil engineering. I figured I should at least qualify for a license, but that didn't turn out to be very easy.
No.
As I kept applying for the license, and it seemed that just about a week or so before I would have to go for the exam, they found something else that I should be doing before I could go to the exam. This was just to get permitted to take the exam.
But you finally got your license.
I did.
All right. So you succeeded.
Right.
What are some of the big major projects that really were highlighted in your career, do you think?
Well, some of the projects, I must really admit, I only really realized the full complexity and the size of them, because believe it or not, they were in 1953 and now just about reaching a point where they need rebuilding and redoing.
So you're outliving your own projects, is what
Yes,
you're
it's
telling me.
starting to be looking that way. As a matter of fact, we're now, and since I'm still doing some part-time work, we're now actually working on some projects that I was involved in when I started with a firm. And I had the luck of being able to stay with the firm for all this time. And now we're working on repairing, modernizing, and updating some of the projects.
Okay.
Most of them were related to dams or water treatment plants.
Okay.
And many of them were not just in the States. Our firm did a lot of work in Puerto Rico and South America. So some of the projects were extremely interesting. And
Well,
nice.
let's carry that one step forward. What gave you the most pleasure on any of the projects, or maybe not the work itself, but the water industry itself? What was your biggest pleasure? Meeting people, doing the communication between client and you as an engineer for Buck, Cipher & Yost? Or was it actually a completion of a project and then seeing it start from the beginning and going to final finished product? What was the most pleasure you had?
I think when I think back and try to answer your question, it's a combination of all these things that you mentioned. I don't really think, from my point of view, there is probably a profession that has as much of a variety of activities all concentrated and brought together under one head as civil engineering and the water industry. And I think for the most part, most people don't even realize how diverse that field is. As a matter of fact, a typical firm that would be working in the water industry and would like to offer what we refer to as full services, meaning handling a project from A to Z, will require in its organization more than just civil engineers. They will require electrical engineers, they will require mechanical engineers, they will require, in most cases, chemical engineers that have a background in chemistry. And to answer your question, what gave me the greatest pleasure was the ability to work with all these different areas being pulled together and brought together and make people work together from all these different backgrounds and accomplish that. This is, I guess, the biggest message I would like to offer to young people, that they should realize that maybe at the outset, when they are not so fully convinced yet in what direction they want to go, the area of civil engineering has the broadest field. It has the widest possibility to get you involved in anything. Not just office work, but also work in the field, work outdoors. And you almost have a way of being able to shape and modify your own development over the years as to what direction you like most.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions I have, which you led right into my question, I wanted to know how do you feel that the water industry would be desirable for young individuals? And you just answered the question, though.
Yes,
one
very
of the questions I have for you, which we didn't discuss, but I was very proud. We made a presentation together a few years ago on AWWA.
Yes, we
and
did.
we had, and one of the things we agreed on was communication between engineers and owner-operator on how projects get done.
Right.
All right. Do you feel that the engineer should take the lead, or should the owner take the lead in regards to a project? I personally believe that if I'm hiring you as an engineer, that you should take the lead from there and just check with us. What's your thoughts on that?
I think the concept that the engineer in some way should be the lead person, I think is the right concept. However, I think the engineer should never close his ears or be hesitant to listen to what the owner has to say. Because in most cases, the owner and the operators have a lot to tell you and can give you very, very good advice that you should be taken into account as you start working on designing new facilities. You may have an excellent background that was given to you through education